Voices from the Mausoleum is brought to you by the You Run Podcast Network and yourunpodcast.com.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum. Welcome to the episode Found Footage Fridays.
Woo! We're getting at the time of recording where it gets a little loopy.
They make for the best episodes, though, I think.
Sure. I think so. I was just saying, before we were recording this, I was talking about how the Alien Live, was one of our best videos, and I was sick and high on NyQuil, so I don't know if people enjoyed it, but maybe.
To be fair, I think one of the funniest times you've been is when we did the watch along for Infested. I laughed so much. There was so much I wanted to cut from that and use to promo because it was just so funny. Or like even Jaws, you're just naturally funny. Aww. I mean, I'm sure the NyQuil made it more intense, but it's already there.
I don't even know if I was funny with Alien. Tasha's like, you look like you're gonna pass out.
Can you imagine if you just
it probably would have went viral.
In the middle of the episode, you're just like, because eventually gravity's gonna work and you're gonna fall forward at some point.
I'm gonna just face plant into my microphone.
Hilarious.
But no, I'm not quite there yet. So no NyQuil tonight. No NyQuil.
Okay, good. Yeah, so we're back to routine on Found Footage Fridays. Last week we talked about the 2021 film The Deep House, which is a hybrid found footage. Don't come for us. We do what we want. It counts. And had a lot of things to say about that. You can go back and check that out if you haven't seen it yet. And then this week, everybody should have had hopefully a restful, fun day yesterday. By the time this comes out, will have been July 4th. A lot of people, I think I'm off that day. A lot of people get it off, or a lot of people take it off so they can go do fun things. So there's no better found footage movie to discuss on 4th of July or near 4th of July, other than the 2012 found footage horror movie, The Bay. So short synopsis: the residents of Seaside, Maryland community become the unfortunate host of mutant waterborne parasites that take control of their minds and bodies. I feel like it's so much scarier than the description, but that's good enough, I think.
Yeah. No, it is. Yeah, it's a very simple, clean description. It is.
It works.
I texted you. I messaged you as I was watching. I was like, this movie got intense real fast.
So, and this was another first watch? I can't remember.
This was another first watch for me, yeah. And I was like, and I feel like I remember seeing promo for this. I knew it was
the poster is always super familiar to me.
I remember the poster. I remember it being advertised as like from the people of Paranormal Activity. And funny enough, I always forget or I always confuse this movie with there was a found footage TV show. Remember that show that it was like The River, I think it was called, or the
Steve. You know about The River?
Yeah, I remember I watched it and I made Dan watch it with me.
That is one of my top 5 favorite horror TV shows of all time, and no one ever knows what the hell I'm talking about when I bring it up.
Yeah,
I love that so much. How has this not come up yet?
I mean, it's been a minute. I couldn't tell you a single plot detail.
Oh, I can tell you the whole thing. I loved it. But yes, it's very reminiscent of The River.
I think of it because the Bay, the river, it had like almost like similar posters or something. And I remember it kind of having, like sort of similar elements.
Posters. Yeah.
And I remember, so this was like, I think that came out either the year of or the year after Dan and I started dating. And I was like, there's this new horror show coming out. Watch it with me. And this was when he would like actually pretend to like horror to like, make me like him. Now I try to get him to watch things. He's like, no.
You're good now. You're there. You're married. It's you.
Yeah, we're past the courting phase. He doesn't have to pretend anymore. But I always confuse these two. But I think because this was around this time, I think The River came out around like 2012.
It did.
Yeah. So, but anyway, this was a first watch. And it was cool. This was very different from your average found footage movie, just from plot, from structure, uh, characters. Like it
Yeah.
just was. It was really cool.
Yeah, I am a huge fan of the Bay. It's I mentioned this in last week's episode, but right now it's not streaming anywhere. But when I tell
Hmm.
you it's worth the rent, it's worth it. Because I rented it to revisit because I haven't seen it since the first time I watched it, and it's been several years. Because I think I saw it when it was relatively new.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, no, it's so good. The reporter, um, Donna, I love the way that the story is told with her. I think they did
Hmm.
such a great job of navigating the chaos of the day, right? Because there's like one thing
Oh
I
yeah.
talked about before that I love about this subgenre is how creative you can be as a filmmaker because this kind of runs like it covers everything. It's got news stories, it's got street cameras, it's got
Hmm.
uh what is it? Police footage. It's got hand cams. It's got cell phones. I mean, it literally has, I think, like every type of
Yeah.
footage collection possible, right? And I love that because I think that utilizing all of those feels chaotic in essence because it does use all of them to cover
Hmm.
so many different events, but they put them together so well. It's really, really well done. And it tells a very coherent story. Like,
Yeah.
it's so well done in that regard, and I think I messaged you too, and I was like, I forgot, like, how emotional,
Hmm.
like, because horror not that horror can't be emotional, it is, like, there are horror movies that have made me cry, that have broken me, like, it's a thing, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I can as much as I love Skinamarink, I'll never be able to watch it again, like, it upset me, like, in a good way, I love that movie, but it's one of those things where, like, I was watching this, and then I started to remember parts of it, right? Because 'Cause I'd seen it before, and I
Yeah.
was like, I forgot just how, like, emotional this film is, and it's just so good, and there's not enough people talking about it.
No, not that. I don't know anyone that talks about this movie.
No, and then
Um,
I
mhm.
posted that I was watching it today, and people were like, "Oh my god, I love this movie." I'm like, "Why aren't you talking about it then?"
Right,
Like,
right. Why doesn't this get a random shout out?
no,
With the
I
cast
know.
every so often, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I really do love, like you said, like they use every, like at the time, right, from 2012, they use every video option that a small town would have, which makes
Right.
the chaos and sort of the tragedy of the event
Mhm.
feels so big and so, like you said, chaotic. But it is taking place in a small town. So, but the movie doesn't feel small, right?
No.
Because you're getting footage from the CDC that's trying to figure things out. You're getting footage from girl in a stairwell. You're getting hospital footage, cop footage. You're getting,
Scientist in the water, you're getting
right. You're
it's
getting
so many things.
flashbacks to the scientists, the oceanographers, right? And it's really, really cool. And obviously it's very sci-fi. So
Mhm.
where they go with it.
Mhm.
But even then, some of the designs and like the special effects that the makeup that they use in this is really good. Really kind
Mhm.
of gruesome too at times.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I bumps are, there's like a I forget what the phobia is. There's a phobia with that where, like, when you see that, you, like, freak out, like,
Mm.
that kind of stuff makes me so I have, like, a minor phobia of it, like, it bothers me so, 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 so bad, like,
Yeah, their
my
rashes are
son
pretty gnarly.
yeah, my son watched some of this with me today.
Mm.
He was like, what are you watching?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm like," I paused it, I was like, "I think this might be a little too much," and he goes and it was I paused on a scene where there's, like, gore, and he was like, "What is it?" And I was, like, trying to tell him, he was like, "Do I get to see the" what did he call them? He called them anemones.
Yeah, yeah.
Instead of parasites, he just kept calling them anemones. I knew what he meant, though, but anyway, he was, like, super into it, and I think the other thing that's kinda scary about this, right, is, like, the isopods, that's a real thing.
Right. Yeah.
Those parasites that they talk about in the film that essentially are our main, like, thing, those
Hmm.
are real. They
Yeah.
really exist in the world. So anyway, I thought, yeah, I love the Bay. I think it's such a great it's so good at making you feel and you made a really good point talking about it not feeling small because you really do feel like you're in an apocalypse when you're
Yeah.
watching it. Um and you almost like at least for me, like I got to a point where I like forgot that there was at least one survivor. I think there's technically two. Well, two and a half. But I think but you forget like there are people who survive it. And so
Mhm.
you're in the moment, you're like, this is the end of the world. Like, I don't know. Like
Yeah.
it felt, so
Yeah, no, it just feels huge. It feels really, yeah, like a larger than life sort of apocalypse story.
yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, and I think that, like you said, the newscaster that we follow, she's very endearing, very likable
I
character.
like her. Yeah.
The main doctor, because
Oh,
fantastic story there, right? With found
really.
footage, sometimes you lose like the character development or the characterization because things move so
Yes.
fast. You don't really get to
Yep.
spend a lot of time, but a lot of the emotional dilemmas that the characters that we do get, like the newscaster, the doctor, the couple with the baby, those are sort of like our main, and the cops. Those are sort of our main
And the
characters,
CDC, there's a couple of
and
people at the CDC
and the CDC
that we
we
see a
follow.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. I think they do a great job at sort of having us align with these characters, which is really cool to see.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you rate this?
Oh yeah, this is what I give the Deep House 9. So the question is, do I like the Deep House more, or do I like this one more? It's hard. But I'm gonna give this an 8.5
Okay.
because it's
8.5.
really good.
It is.
I
No,
think
it
the
is.
Deep House, just sort of on the uniqueness, sort of trumps it a little bit for me. Um, that's just fresh in my mind since we just talked about it. But this one I think is just really good. And I wish that this had gotten the love that, say, like Paranormal Activity did.
Yeah, because it's
Um,
done by the producers of Paranormal Activity and Insidious.
yeah.
Both very well loved franchises. It's very strange that this did, but I think it's just because it was before the found footage boom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It came out in 2012 and it wasn't, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it was right after Paranormal Activity, though, right? So
When did that
it
come out?
should have.
2012? 2011.
Yeah, because they were using Paranormal Activity to advertise it.
Mm.
So
Well,
they
then, yeah,
were
I
so
really
like
don't know.
that's the thing, right? I mean, the ones that tend to come after the most popular one tend to not do as well as like because then people are like, oh, I'm so tired of it already, right? So the ones that sort of follow suit tend to get brushed over. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, so for me, this is a 9. Um, and at first, pretty much kind of how you said, I gave Deep House 10 out of 10 because I love that movie. That was my movie of the year that it came out. Um, and this would have been close if I had done a list in 2012.
Hmm.
But I think it is it's not as unique as Deep House, so kind of like what you were saying. It's just a little bit lower. It's not much, it's close, but I think that I don't think this one's perfect. Like when I think about it, I don't think, oh, this is a perfect movie. I just think I really love this and I wish more people were talking about it.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
and it
engaging.
is like it does get very gruesome. I think the effects were really, really well done. I think they did a very good job of creating a full story with this, as
Hmm.
opposed to, sometimes in found footage, everybody dies at the end and we don't learn anything. You know what I mean? Like it's very open-ended or vague,
Yeah.
but this felt like a complete story.
Hmm.
Um, and I just don't know that happens that often in found footage. There's usually something
No.
left.
It feels
Um,
fully fleshed out. It
yeah,
feels you learn the reason for everything
it
happening.
all makes sense.
You
Yep.
get a catharsis at the end. You sort of it just feels like a complete story, which is very nice.
I also will say this is definitely what I would consider statement horror. It definitely has a message.
Yeah.
But I think it is layered into everything else in a way where it's not like in an annoying way.
No, it doesn't beat you
Like
over the head with it.
no, but it's definitely there. I mean, there's parts, and we'll bring it up when we get to spoilers, but there's parts where they say specific things, and you're like, "Yep, this has definitely got something to say."
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like you talk about environmental ecological disaster, right? So obviously, there's going to be like an environmentalist, spin to it, which then brings in some political underpinnings. But again, like they don't. It's not the point. The point is you're following this character through the chaos, right? But then it's also part mockumentary.
It is, yeah, and we haven't talked about that yet, but it is, yeah, it is definitely in part mockumentary. The way the setup for the story is, yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah,
they're interviewing a survivor, right? And then they're sort of telling it from beginning to end. So you're getting this like mockumentary structure.
it is, yeah, and I think we're both kind of suckers for that. I really love when mockumentary
Yeah.
stuff just it's a subgenre of found footage that I just absolutely love. There's especially when it's done well, and I think this is done really well.
Yeah. And I'm surprised we don't get more of it considering the true crime boom that's happened.
Yeah.
Like we don't get more fictional kind of mockumentary stuff, not just around true crime, but definitely true crime.
I know what you
Uh,
mean though. Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to move into spoilers?
sure. All right, spoiler banner up. Beware, beware.
Yeah. Again, it's worth the rent. Go rent it. Yeah. So, okay. You know this like mayor guy, right? The mayor is like very Jaws. Like
Right.
very just like, but I love that she makes a point to talk about where he came from.
Hmm.
Oh, he used to have what was like a shoe store, and then he just got enough votes and was mayor. And I think that that's important because that means of course he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Like
Right.
it was such a small second of story, but that extra detail makes it far more believable that he doesn't know what the hell to do. Like he's just like, let me just drink
I
this
mean,
water and make a point, like
yeah. Well, it's funny that this came out in 2012 because there definitely are people in politics today where we could be like, you probably should have made that switch over. Like,
yeah, that's
it's
true.
like, why don't we leave sort of the professionals to the thing, right? Like, if someone truly studied poli sci, knew what they were doing, would be like, oh, maybe we should listen to the experts here about the water. And like, it would just, yeah, he clearly was just like, it was all about getting elected for him and everything's fine and dandy in his little town. And that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, and the water thing was so interesting because we got the the pieces of the story where they're like, why didn't you warn anybody? And he's like, because we're not required to.
Yeah. He's like,
He's
it
like,
passed by standards, right? Or it passed
yeah,
just
that's
as it
the
needed.
and then they because and then it does the zoom in, right, where it's like drinking water D minus.
Yeah.
And it's such a real thing because it's like that even for restaurants.
Mhm.
Like, there are restaurants who can fail and still be allowed to be open. They usually give them, like, a time frame of when they have to be done before they get inspected again or whatever. Within certain things, there's certain things that's an automatic shutdown, but they let them get away with a lot sometimes, depending on the person doing it.
Yeah.
And he's very clear. He's like, "We did this, and we did the things, and we did this, and it passed. Like, that's all we're required to do."
Bare
And it's
minimum.
just like because that's real. And I
Right.
think we live in a world where we would love to believe that the people who are in those positions are doing all of the right things, but they're not. They're following the
Mm.
rules.
Yeah, and baked into those rules are not enough protections for people. And
Nope,
I mean,
it's
look at
the
the poor people in
minimum.
Michigan, right? The whole Flint, Michigan
That's what
water
it made
issue.
me think of revisiting it today. It made me think of the Michigan water thing. Like immediately, I was like, because
Yeah,
that was fucking ridiculous.
yeah. And this came out before that
That
too.
was
But I mean,
Flint, Michigan.
it
Yeah,
was Flint, Michigan, and I mean, this movie came out before that sort of really
yeah,
exploded that whole issue. But I mean, obviously, this sort of issue is. I mean, I think of Erin Brockovich, right? That's not a horror
yep.
movie, right? But the real Erin Brockovich went in and addressed the real environmental issues in that neighborhood and how it affected the people, and they were getting diagnosed and
That's
all this
very
stuff.
real. Yeah,
So this stuff happens. So to take it and make a horror movie based on it is very interesting. I love that so much.
yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And the way these things looked and like it's like I don't know, like they look like roly polies. You know what roly
Yeah,
polies
yeah,
are?
a little like yeah.
They're like roly polies, but they're like big and scary. And I love that they took the time to add in the conversations about the size difference and about
Mhm.
and about the fact that they're not behaving the way they normally would because everything is all jacked up, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not, and
Steroids, or like the chicken steroids is what's going in the water,
it's so
right?
many things, right?
A
And
lot
so
of stuff.
and yeah, because they're what was it they were saying? They were like, oh, we found this and we found traces of this and we found
They
traces of
found
that.
Viagra in the water.
Viagra, and what was the other one? One of them was like an antidepressant or something. I can't
Yeah,
remember, but he was like, literally anything you can think of, they
is
have
in
in
there.
their water, basically. And it's like, of course, that would affect an animal's natural instincts or the way that it would react. But that scene when that guy's picking up, I'm guessing it's like a bass. I don't know. Do I look like I know what fish are? No. But he's like holding it, right? How they
Yeah.
hold them when they pull them off the hooks. And that
Mhm.
thing just like that
Jumps out of the
was
mouth.
so good.
Yeah. I jumped.
I was like, ooh,
I was like
and
expecting it, but I still jumped.
no, I mean, yeah, you are expecting because you're like consuming it for some reason, right? We're gonna see.
Yeah.
And they're like, what is that? What is that? I've never seen. And so that was one of the parts that O watched, and he was just like, where did it go? And he's like fascinated because it's like a bug, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the other part where, oh, one of my favorite scenes is the divers when we get to finally see what happened to the scientist.
Oh,
And they
yeah.
go down and they see them like climbing all over the fish that are dead at the
Mhm.
bottom of and then they like, and that one just goes right through
With
her.
the goggles, right? Yeah.
Oh my God, that was so good. Like,
Yeah.
oh, they
No, the
that stuff
effects were
was
very
really
good.
well
A lot of
done
it
in
was
this.
subtle, right? But the body
Yeah.
horror was fantastic.
It
And like,
really, really was.
because it was like a combination, right? It was like parasites eating their way in and eating their way out. And it was like the way they layered so much of the gore. It was very dynamic. It was
Be
it was so
Yeah,
good.
because the boils and stuff were not necessarily related to the parasites. There was multiple things being caused by the
Yeah.
parasites being like the rashes and stuff were coming from like basically an infection from like it was very
Yeah.
like wide. I mean, like, and when he's telling like that scene when he amputates the leg, so it's the
Yeah. It was
parents
the
of the
dad's.
girl
Yeah.
who's on the boat with her baby and her husband. And the mom is on
Mhm.
the phone telling her, like, don't get off the boat, don't get off the boat, right? At
Yeah.
that point, it doesn't matter though, because they didn't get the message, but also the husband had already been in the water and got in his mouth. And well, anyway, his scenes is one of my favorite ones too. But that scene when they amputate the leg and the other, it's either another doctor or a nurse or a surgeon or somebody comes in and goes, it's now on the arm or the other
Oh,
leg.
it's on the other leg.
It's on the other leg, and you're just like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Yeah.
And then the CDC is like, "You need to just leave." And he's like, "I've got people here." He was such a
Yeah.
great character. That
That was my
doctor,
favorite moment of the movie when he was like, I can't leave. Like I have yeah, no, I love that. That was
so good.
probably that was like, yeah, that was like the hardest moment I think in it is the hardest character moment. Because he really
Mhm.
wasn't our main lens, but he pretty much, I mean, he was pretty much, but outside of the newscaster.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
that's
I
such a
agree.
hard, and it made me think, I mean, in a post-pandemic world that we just experienced, how exhausted the doctors and nurses felt like in the early days of the pandemic.
It definitely, yeah, that part definitely hits different now than it did probably back
Yeah, right?
initially watching it. Yeah.
So it's always interesting going back and seeing like a 10-year-old movie with a different lens, because it recontextualizes a little bit. But yeah, no,
Mhm.
that was like heartbreaking. Um, And then obviously the couple, and obviously anytime there's a baby involved too, I'm like, ugh. The baby's name was Andrew, which is my son's name. So I was like, of
Stress
course.
me out. Yeah, that
Yeah.
well, and the thing is like this felt very zombie to me, right? Like
Mhm.
them getting off the boat, like there's dead bodies and that was
Yeah.
crazy. And then like the scene when the parasite chews out of his neck,
Ooh,
that
yeah.
was so well done and so upsetting. Like I was just like, "Oh my God." Because like if they hadn't played around and he hadn't been pushed in the water, they both would have been fine.
Yeah.
And you're just like, because and when you think about water, right? And I love they filmed this very well because they show the dunking pool, they show the sprinklers, they show like the swimming pools, the like all of the ways that this town utilizes their water.
Yeah.
Even down to the chickens, like the way there's that guy in a hoodie, or I don't know who he's supposed to be, I can't remember, but where he's like, oh yeah, and then this animal did this in this time frame, and because he notices something's not right, like the chickens were growing
Yeah.
too fast, and there's like all these elements to this, and it's like, and this kind of goes along with what you were saying earlier, it's such a big story.
Yeah.
um I love this one. I
I love
I
the moment, and you talk about it being a big story, where there's the 2 newscasters at the studio, and they're like, "She was just there for the 4th of July, now she's gonna cover, like, the biggest story of
in
the
her
year,
career,
her
yeah,
career of the year of, like." And they're like, "This
yeah.
could be a career maker." And then you see her, obviously, she's the one that they're interviewing, and I'm like, "Well, clearly she's not in a good place right now." So,
No, because she talks about how she's been trying to talk about it, and she just keeps like they have that typed up email thing, which was a little cheesy, but like the subject line was like FBI, and you know what I
oh,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
It wasn't like super, that didn't feel very realistic, but like it's like her boss telling her that she can't post about stuff anymore or something.
Yeah. Well, they take down her blog. They took
Yeah,
down like, they're pretty much just trying to silence the story, right?
yeah,
Which is
yeah.
very funny because there's so much now, like, I mean, it was going on live, right? So I guess the bugs weren't on, like the isopods weren't on screen. So I guess there's a way that they could silence it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
weird.
because they talk about when things that had the isopods, I think, where they were sent in and they didn't get a response or it got
Right.
ignored, right? And so, and it really just, and all of that felt very realistic, right? Like,
Mhm.
okay, this is like, I'm gonna keep this tangent super short, but do you remember like a few years ago when bath salts were like
Oh,
everybody said that he
yeah.
was bath salts? Okay, so there was a guy in Florida, naturally, who like ate somebody's face off, got
Yeah.
shot, and like got back up, right? Okay. And everybody said, oh, it was bath salts. Well, I followed that story because that says zombie to me. And I am one of the people that believes that the zombie virus is 100% a real thing that the government has 100% already made. I 100% believe that that is something in existence. I don't believe in the undead, like rising from the dead, but I believe in something making you
Some
zombie.
viral thing that keeps her
Yeah,
body
I
kind of going. Yeah.
100%, because, The Last of Us is based off of, again, a parasite that is based
Parasitic.
in reality, right? So these things exist. Well, anyway, I digress. But I remember when that story happened, I followed it. That guy that they said was on bath salts when he did all of that tested negative for bath salts. He wasn't on bath
Oh,
salts. Somebody in Florida effed up and he was a zombie. And I refuse to believe anything different than that. So this whole like covering stuff up, making stuff up, keeping
yeah.
things, that is 100% what our government does. That's almost their
Oh, I
only
mean,
job, really,
yeah. They're not
And
honest about
so,
everything. I mean, no way.
no,
Like, obviously, they cover things up. Like,
yeah,
I
a
mean,
100%. Aliens, all the good stuff.
yeah. They
But
just don't
yeah,
report it
no,
back.
I thought all of that felt realistic, and it really made me feel for. I think her name is Donna. Donna Thompson is the
Yeah,
um
Heather Donahue's the actor. Yeah, Donna. Yeah.
Donna, and so I really just loved her, and like that part where she's interviewing the guy about the woman that just died, and she's like
Oh,
standing
yeah.
there and she's talking to Jim, her camera guy, and she's like, I hate doing that. She's like, you have to pretend like you don't feel anything, and he goes, but you did really good though. He says, you were professional, you weren't emotional, but you weren't hard on him. It went really well. And he's like trying to comfort her and tell
Yeah.
her that she did a good job, but she was really upset about what was going on.
Yeah. She's like
And
a kid, right? She's in school.
she's so young, and I loved that it was like that type of reporter as opposed to the, oh, let me fix myself so I can make something of myself, like
Right. It wasn't like the
you
Gail Weathers of this.
no, you
Of,
lose all sense of the humanity side of things, and then
yeah.
you just go straight to what you can get out of the situation. And I love that she was like so bothered by what was going on, but way
Yeah.
before she realized it was the parasites. But no, I loved this one. I'm glad we talked about it, and I'm glad I went to revisit it. Because it was, yeah, so good.
No, I mean, yeah, definitely worth checking out if if anyone hasn't seen it. Yeah, here I am, 12 years late on it,
I
but it
mean,
still holds up.
yeah,
It
I think
doesn't feel like a 12-year-old movie.
yeah, I don't, yeah, it's worth watching. You can never be too late. It is, like I said, it's worth the run. I think I paid like $4 for it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, a movie this old, you're not paying much to rent it.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think it's aged really well, and I think it's because most of the effects are practical. The only things that are not are the isopods.
Well, even then, like found footage, you're able to easily hide a lot of the special effects through like black and white or filters or like you get away with a lot, special effects wise when it comes to found
You
footage.
do. It's true. Yeah. Okay.
Well,
Well, I think that's going to wrap up our thoughts on The Bay. If you've not seen it, please go change that. Remedy the situation. It's such a good found footage movie. It's a good movie in general. And nothing says summer fun like something to make you not want to get in the water.
yeah. Well, what's really funny? I was looking at the IMDb page, and Stephanie, who is the daughter on the ship with her on the boat with her husband and the baby,
Yeah.
is a very small bit extra in The Happening, which is another ecological horror movie.
I love The Happening. I mean,
Yeah.
Mark Wahlberg, right? It's rough. Like,
it's Mark Wahlberg.
but it's so good. Like, I really liked it. But yeah, it's no, it's good. I think you should watch it. Everyone should go watch it. That's your homework. So
Yes.
anyway, well, I don't know what we're doing next. We haven't decided yet. So we'll figure that out. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with us on this episode of Found Footage Fridays. We hope you have a good weekend, a great week coming up, and Steve and I will see you in the next one.
See ya.